everybody, and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. For today's video, we're going to be breaking down some of my favorite charts, looking at the Bitcoin price, now approaching prior all-time highs, wondering if we're actually going to see that breakout into price discovery. We're also going to be jumping over here talking about the $170 million that has been bridged over to PulseChain. We're also going to be running over here and looking at Hex. We're going to be looking at both hexes. We're also going to be running over PulseChain, PulseX, and then finally wrapping it up over here with Ink. We have a couple cool fractals to share with you guys looking at PulseX. One of these fractals of a chart that I actually traded in a couple cycles prior, back in 2016, how it looks exactly the same accumulation we're seeing today, what it means for the further price of PulseX, what it means for the upside of the rest of the PulseChain ecosystem. This is a very insightful video, packed full of information, so at any point you find value in anything I'm talking about, make sure you guys do me a favor by leaving a like for this video, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell as well, so you don't miss out on any of these videos. If you guys do want to end up seeing how I'm investing my money long term, you can also follow links in the description to go ahead and sign up to my private group provided on my website. Now guys, talking about Bitcoin, as we see Bitcoin rallying all the way back up to these prior all-time highs, this is happening at a much quicker pace than any of the prior cycles. We've talked extensively about this since all the way back in last year, wondering, if we do get an institutional cycle, is there a potential where Bitcoin actually front runs, where it becomes much more bullish than anything we've ever seen before? And the short answer so far is yes, that is the case. Once the ETF was approved, we saw this little whipsaw type price action, with this massive sort of capitulation, and it really wasn't even that big of a sell-off. But we did see a false breakout followed by a false breakdown. So it was this big kind of whipsaw action that trapped everybody before this recent run that we've seen. So seeing Bitcoin rallying so quickly to those prior all-time highs, this is happening at a much quicker pace, which tells me that this cycle is much more powerful than anything we've seen up to this point. Even the dips over in here were all bought up very quickly. This dip wasn't very big. This dip wasn't very big. All of them were retesting that 25K support. This dip really wasn't very big. We come back and look at our prior cycles, and we had multiple dips that were significantly larger than that, right? And I think that that's the most important thing we need to pay attention to, is this cycle's already proven to have way more buy support, and with the approval of the ETF, I think that that's only going to continue to, enhance as we go through this cycle. In 2017, we had multiple 30-40% corrections before we ever even went to the prior all-time highs. Bitcoin has had like 20% corrections up to this point, leading into this retest of these range highs. So even if we see a pullback in here, maybe we retest up in here, see some type of short-term correction before we break out, it's looking a lot more like what we're going to end up seeing is Bitcoin making a new all-time high much quicker than any of the prior cycles. And this leads us to wonder, is it going to be a left translated cycle where we do end up topping a little bit earlier? In a normal cycle, historically speaking in Bitcoin trends, we see a 3-year bull market. So from at the peak all-time low of the market, the beginning of the new bull cycle right here at the end of the year of 2022, we're looking at like 1,100 days approximately before our cycle top if we were to follow a normal sort of Bitcoin bull market. That's looking at the end of the year 2025 for our cycle top. However, with us front running, it gives us a little bit of a perspective we have to chew on and kind of think about, where if this breaks out at a much quicker pace, we might end up topping at a quicker pace as well, where maybe this thing makes a huge breakout, a blow off top relatively soon. We come all the way up to this 150K level with virtually no pullbacks, and the price action itself, maybe looks a little bit more like 2017, how it just kind of skyrockets like this. Not very many pullbacks, more or less just euphoric type of price action. If we see anything like that, I am very much leaning towards us having an early cycle top, where maybe we end up topping at the end of this year, the beginning of 2025, maybe even sort of like the spring, early spring of 2025. That would be a significantly, shorter cycle than anything we've seen up to this point. But it all kind of is going to revolve around what the price action does. Because if we do get a correction back down in here and we kind of reconsolidate, even though we're at those prior all-time highs at a quicker pace, if we spend a few more months consolidating sideways, it's going to put us a little bit more on trajectory of a normal cycle. So these are the main factors that I'm watching for with Bitcoin. If we get a breakout of this new all-time high, go into price discovery for the short term, I do lean towards us having an early cycle top. However, if we kind of come back down and reconsolidate for a couple months, I'm leaning towards us topping closer towards the end of 2025. Now, guys, let's jump into PulseChain and talk about the amount of money that has been bridged over. We saw $170 million, guys. This is a lot of money. We're starting to see that liquidity bridging over. The whales are starting to pick up on the trend, the narratives. They're starting to see that there's, Bitcoin is already taking off. That's always a signal that we need to rotate capital into these altcoins. So as we're seeing this, money is bridging over. over, we're actually seeing a significant amount of liquidity that is moving onto PulseChain. So as we're seeing all of this, I think it's very important that we're factoring in why we're kind of seeing a lot of this breakout in the price. We're seeing Ink breaking out, we're seeing PulseChain breaking out, PulseX, Hex, everything kind of pumped really hard. Now, a lot of people might be wondering why that is, and it's actually because the sacrifice wallet from, you know, the creation of all of these tokens, when everybody initially sacrificed for the raises, Richard Hart, or somebody around the sacrifice wallet, aka Richard Hart, he's actually going back and starting to buy his own tokens. So this is something that the Hex community has always known. It's something that the PulseChain community are a little bit more getting used to if you've only just recently joined in the last few months. Because in the last cycle, Richard Hart was known for being a mastermind at pumping his own coin. So then it was kind of speculated that in the next cycle, when we have his layer 1 with PulseChain and PulseX, the DEX, and Ink, and all of these other projects, it made sense that most likely he was going to end up using the sacrifice raising money to go back and buy the own tokens and actually end up pumping them further. And that's the thing about Richard Hart, is he's so wealthy from being so early and being one of the biggest people in crypto, like legitimately top 5 biggest people in crypto, comparing like how early he was to Bitcoin, also comparing the amount of wealth he's been able to generate with the products that he's built. And now when we're talking about how much money he raised inside of those sacrifices, he doesn't need anything more. And he's always told people that that was the case. He says, I don't need the money. I've made enough money. I'm here to enrich the other people, which it's kind of like the Robin Hood sort of story. And people on my perspective that have only came onto PulseChain, I sacrificed for PulseChain, but I didn't really follow along with it. And I didn't really think Richard was anything, you know, to pay attention to. I just got into it because I had a girlfriend that, you know, more or less forced me into it. Not really. But seeing all of what he's done up to this point, it's further solidified his validity and his, you know, truthfulness of what he's continued to preach up to this point. The fact that he's going to be pumping his own tokens, in my opinion, you're going to see the biggest upside potential inside of the entire PulseChain ecosystem. And it's really because it's run by somebody who genuinely wants to see everybody that's early invested into his ecosystem, into his products, into his DeFi protocols and whatnot. He wants to see them win. He genuinely wants to see everybody win that believes in him, and we're starting to see that. These are the coins that he actually accumulated, and as he accumulated them, they all started breaking out. Coming down here and looking at Hex, this was a chart that I recently drew because it looks just like a typical consolidation before we see a breakout, and that's kind of why I drew this. It's literally like a 6x or so, all the way back up to the levels we were sitting at prior to the launch of PulseChain. So I do think that we're going to see a huge reversal take place very soon. And with this big green candle that came in here, that was ultimately what we saw when Richard Hart came in and started buying, adding new liquidity into these markets. So seeing Hex breaking out, or at the verge of breaking out, we're just sitting right below this massive resistance, just waiting on a breakout. You know, I do think that once this thing breaks, it's going to be a pretty quick impulse where a lot of people are going to get left behind, in the exact same way I've kind of drawn it right here, where it's going to catch most people by surprise. But that's the way these altcoins move, and that's specifically the way Hex moves. Hex doesn't have a ton of liquidity. The eHex version, there's not very much liquidity over here. So to make this thing pump, it doesn't take that much money. And that's kind of universally on a lot of these different cryptos in the PulseChain ecosystem, which is why when you have the creator coming in and actually pumping his own bags, it doesn't even take that much money from one of the richest people in the entire crypto space as a whole over the last, 15 years basically. So I do think that these things are going to see immense upside potential very soon. Looking over here at the PHEX version, this was the forked version when PulseChain went live. It's actually valued at a higher price. It's valued with more liquidity. More people actually believe that this is the real version of Hex because it's actually built on PulseChain. So it's interesting to see what's going to end up playing out, with price-wise, how they're going to parity, how they're going to, outperform each other or underperform each other, because they will kind of go through their own little cycles where one will outperform, one will underperform. In my opinion, in the short term, we're going to see eHex outperform, and potentially even long term as well. That will get a lot of debate, but that's kind of what I lean towards. And either way, I think it's a great investment for both of them. And there is more liquidity over here on the PHEX version. That's kind of why I also think that the eHex version is going to end up rising quicker, because it takes a lot less money to pump the eHex version because there is so much more liquidity over here on PulseChain. So that's kind of the big thing. I think that's the main factor for me. It's just easier to move the eHex price, so chances are it's going to outperform, especially because it's already worth less than the PHEX version. Like, that's just my opinion. I'd like to hear what you guys think. Comment that below. But as we're retesting this mid-range, we're also retesting these range highs from over in here. I think that this is just right on that verge of breaking out. And the thing about this chart is once the eHex chart breaks out, you got to keep in mind that we have this entire price history that we can still look at, and it does actually matter when we are looking over here at the p-hex version. Even though, you know, it's two different coins, I think that there will still be people kind of speculating between the both sides. There definitely will be. There's going to be a lot of arbitrage opportunities and things like that. So when we're looking at e-hex, just right on that verge of breaking out, I find it likely that this thing's just going to skyrocket into a new all-time high. It's not going to wait around for anybody. There's a ton of volume that came in here on this recent green candle, and this is the kind of the moment of truth, right? There isn't that much liquidity over here, so it's not going to take a significant amount of money to drive price. There's enough liquidity for kind of mid-whales, I guess you could say, to come and play in the markets. Maybe some big whales, but it would take them longer to scale in. And that's kind of the cool thing, is who's going to be able to bridge liquidity over here? Who's going to be able to add that value? Because I do think that he who centers the liquidity inside of PulseChain is going to be able to make a significant amount of money long term, because there will be a lot of people that will bridge over here. And PulseChain itself has kind of cemented itself as being an epicenter for true DeFi, being that it's one of the only truly decentralized chains in crypto. And it's also one of the biggest chains out there as a whole. Coming over here and looking at wrapped pulse, this is where things are going to get interesting, right? Because we just retested this entire mid-range, and I actually made some charts when I first got into this market, and I wanted to bring them up because it's going to kind of share with you guys what I still am anticipating and why I saw that this was coming early on. So these were some charts that I made when I very first came over to PulseChain, and this is the real reason why everybody inside of PulseChain, Maddie Allen, you know, all of the other people that had me stream with them, this is the real reason why they ended up doing that. When I came over here, I saw that the entire PulseChain ecosystem was bottomed. I saw how we just finished this little one-wave impulse down in here. And I knew that each one of these were going to break out and go into this wave 3. And that's exactly what we ended up seeing. All of these markets broke out perfectly, and they even had the same sort of little correction in here inside of their wave 4. So when we're looking at all of these charts, I think it's very important that we understand, you know, where we're at and where we have to go, considering we just finished that wave 3 and wave 4, right? That was this entire little correction that I was watching for when I was comparing the two charts. That was this move right here. Now we're just starting that next breakout. And the way that I think that the market looks from my perspective, I don't think that it's just going to stop at the next impulse, right? I do think that this Elliott wave count is a little bit different. We might come up to this level up in here, pretty close to those all-time highs of the chart, 0.00023 to be exact. And then we might see another little correction. It could even come back down pretty close to where we're at right now. But still, big picture, I think that we're going into a new all-time high. So I don't like to necessarily focus only on Elliott waves, because they can kind of fractal out infinitely if there's enough money and demand. So I'm not trying to pick tops in this. I see that we've just made our first true higher high of the new cycle. And that's what we did right in here, right? That was our main resistance, because then when the SEC sued Richard Hart, we made that lower low. This was all below resistance. These were all lower highs. This was the first higher high, right? Because we've successfully broken out of a prior resistance level, and we've now retested that as new support. So that is a reversal. That's the first higher high of the new trend. And when we look at this, it looks exactly like this chart over in here that I made from a little while ago. Now, we've spent a little bit more time consolidating here, but this was the exact same thing I was watching for. This was a market that I made a bunch of money on in the last cycle. I'm not going to tell you exactly what it was because I don't want people to steal my fractal. But basically, I bought this all the way back down in the very bottom of its cycle low. And I made like a 40 or a 50x when it broke out. And this actually even goes higher than what this chart shows down in here. So when I was looking over here, this is the chart of PulseX, but Pulse is the same. They both look exactly the same. They're all doing the same setup where we're about to just go into a massive parabolic move. And that's why I say that if we're prepared beforehand and we understand what is taking place from a technical perspective, we're definitely going to make more money than everybody else, because now comes the opportune time where all we want to really be doing is holding. This is why we've been investing. This is why we got into the sacrifices. If you did, it's all for this moment right now, where as long as we hold, as long as we focus on the long-term trend and allow it to just, you know, do its thing, we're going to be able to realize a significant amount of profit long-term. Now, coming over here and looking at PulseX, this was the chart that I just shared with you guys. This was the exact fractal from over in here. And this is more along the lines of what I think is going to be playing out. This one will outperform PulseChain. So if you're looking between, you know, PulseX, Hex, and PulseChain, I kind of think that PulseX has the highest probability of outperforming all of them, just because of the deflationary mechanism and the amount of upside it will probably have when all of this liquidity kind of comes into the market. So I do do think that the way their buy burn works, we're going to end up seeing this thing probably outperform the other coins. I don't know exactly what the price will go to, but when we're looking at this, I do think that the next leg up is where we pretty much go straight to these prior all-time highs. We're about to see this huge breakout. We could see a little pullback, but big picture, this thing's about to just full send. I don't really think there's any more waiting around. I'm telling you guys, this is the disbelief phase. We can come and look at market cycles. You know, we can look at crypto coffee being cute. Ignore all of this drawing because it's actually obsolete for what we're doing. But when we're looking at this, we're in this disbelief phase, right? Where this was the bear market bottom. We had just broken out, made our first higher high. And this is also a repeated version, right? Disbelief happens at the very bottom. It's kind of like the first higher high before the parabolic cycle takes in. And it happens twice, right? It happens after we just break out of the bear market. And it happens obviously at the same point because that's at the very beginning of a new cycle. So seeing this disbelief phase, most people aren't, really believing that this has any validity. They're seeing this first higher high and they're saying, nothing's going to happen. This thing's going to pump one more high and then it's going to crash and do this forever. I don't believe that's the case. I think that these things are actually just about to send into a new all-time high. And I just can't deny the facts of the matter. The chart just looks too bullish for me. And it seems like it's already spent the accumulation doing this. Now that we've made the first higher high, all the accumulation is over. We're about to just start markup. Now coming in here and looking at ink, this is one of my favorites. We've already made probably the most money. Well, we definitely have made the most money off this one so far, besides maybe Teddy Bear. But looking at when we bought back in on this retest, we're already up about almost 2x inside of this move. We just broke out of this ascending triangle formation. When I watched this thing kind of coming in here, I knew that it was about to be breaking out. And I do believe that we're at the very minimum coming up to this resistance up here. The top of this lower high basically being about $8, just to give you guys an exact number. A little below, a little above, somewhere in that range of $8. That's kind of where I think we're coming in. We're seeing, volume coming in. We don't have new all-time high in volume, but this is starting to reverse. It does look like we will end up seeing, new volume picking up in here. So as we're seeing this, I do believe this will have, probably be the biggest outperformer. This will outperform PulseX. This will outperform Hex, eHex, all of them. I think that this is the most, biggest dark horse candidate that you can pick inside of the PulseChain ecosystem because it's a farmed token, so you can generate it for free just by actually staking or actually by farming your LP tokens. So if you provide liquidity on PulseX with PulseChain and PulseX or Hex or whatever the heck you want to do, by providing that liquidity, you're actually able to get a liquidity token showing that you own this much in the pool, and then you can actually go ahead and stake that, and that allows you to farm ink or incentive token. So ink is just a farm token, and that's why I think that in the bull market, it's going to end up doing really, really well. But once the bear market swings, it's going to end up dropping super hard because people are going to take profits. Now, I don't think that there's going to be a ton of sell side pressure during the bull market because I think that all of the whales are just looking to hold, or the people that are actively farming it currently, they're just looking to hold and continue to accumulate as much as they can because now the reversion has happened. Now the reversal has taken place. The new volumes came in. We see more volume down in here than we ever even saw at the peak all-time high. And where the peak all-time high is like, 20x or something. Well, it's only a 15 or 16x anymore. But from when we were buying it back down in here, it was like a 30x or something crazy. I don't remember. Let's see. That's not even the peak low of when we bought in, but yeah, almost a 50x from the all-time high. So I've always seen this as kind of being the dark horse candidate where it's going to outperform, it's going to catch people by surprise because it's only a farmed token. The way Richard Hart's mastercrafted this ecosystem, it's a beautiful thing to watch, and I do think that anybody that's positioned right now is going to make a lot of money. Now, I did want to take the time to break down one final coin on today's video. This is my favorite one. This is, in my opinion, the one that will probably outperform the most, create the most adoption inside of PulseChain over the next year, and potentially even into the whole next cycle. They've got a lot of cool things built. They've got a lot of things in the pipeline, and I definitely wanted to break down that one. Coming over here and taking a look at Pulse Launch, this thing is getting ready to absolutely send. Tomorrow is the official fair launch, and that's the most important thing you guys need to be paying attention for. Anybody that's been wanting to participate inside of this is the very first launchpad built on PulseChain. It's the only one that's community governed in all of crypto, and anybody that actually participates in this and does end up accumulating some launch tokens tomorrow during the fair launch, they're actually going to get, an airdrop DAO token once the platform goes live. And through that airdrop, you're actually going to have community governance in which projects launch in PulseChain. To me, that's the most beautiful part about a launchpad. Any of them that are actively actively engaging with the community and allowing them to actually vote on what projects get added to the chain. There's never been a better launch pad in my opinion, and that's really why I'm so focused on this one moving forward. They've literally got all of the biggest people inside of PulseChain supporting. They've got all of the biggest marketing agencies. They've got all of the different community members from Solana and Ethereum and Arbitrum and Optimism. They have all of the things that doesn't exist in PulseChain currently, and they're literally bringing it all over here to PulseChain. So this is going to be probably the most hyped launch that we've ever seen happen on PulseChain ever since all the way back talking about the sacrifices themselves, PulseX going over PulseChain and all of those. I do believe that this is going to be the most hyped launch that we've seen up to this point. So, you know, based off of the amount of traffic they've seen, it's probably going to sell out very quickly. So you're not going to have a lot of time to really get into this if you do want to participate. So once again, if you do, make sure you go to their website. I'm going to link everything in the description below. Don't follow any tokens. The tokens are not out yet. There is a scam token currently trading on the market that some idiot made. So don't go try and buy any launch tokens. They don't even exist yet. The only way that you're ever going to be able to get launch is tomorrow from the official website when this actual launch takes place, 1900 UTC. So you got to be there. Once again, links are in the description. Thank you guys so much for all of the support of this channel. It really means the absolute world to me that I'm able to make these videos, that I'm able to see the markets breaking out and help educate you guys, because it makes me happy seeing you guys make money. My ultimate goal is to see everybody profit. I make these videos because I genuinely want to see you guys make profit. I've already made so much money in crypto, I could literally just quit making videos tomorrow and just be done with it. But going into a brand new cycle, the amount that I can show you guys, because I've been through 3 bull markets, 8 years in crypto, I know that it's going to be able to help you guys out tremendously. And that's my most important thing, is making sure that the people that are in debt, the people that want to help take care of their parents, the people who want to take care of their families better, just want to take care of themselves, you know, whatever it is that you want to do. My ultimate goal is to see you guys accomplish your goals. And I really want to see you do that over the next few months. And I think it's about to take place. Seeing the markets break out gives me a lot of encouragement for everybody that watches this channel. So shout out to you guys. Shout out to anybody that supports me, and shout out to anybody that hates on me at the same time. Either way, I want you guys to all win. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you guys want to check out my website, see how I'm investing inside of my portfolio, links are in the description to go ahead and look at that. Once again, thank you all for the support, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. As always, peace out.